I'm a shadow on the ENVI committee, and in attempting to try and understand this, we held a conference on it. We spoke to farmers, working with an environmentalist, a former member of the Green Party in my office, and a farmer. And we came to the conclusion that obviously the accounting is necessary, in fact essential, if we want to do something about greenhouse gases and the damage to the environment and to climate, and the problems that we saw that farmers could be facing because of it. And one of the worries that we would have is that forestry could be used in Ireland to offset more intensive farming. Now, people might say, what's the problem with that? Well, one of the worries from many of the farmers that we spoke to was that we would see a situation where the worst land, to use some people's phrase, or mountainous land or bogland would be used to plant forestry. And then the other areas south of the country, where the better land is, that they would steam ahead with intensification. Now, okay, some people might like that and might go for that, but that does cause a problem for the areas where I live in, because it would result in widespread forestry, hectare after hectare, and unfortunately experience has told us that that doesn't fit very well with people living in those areas, and that has got to be guarded against. And even more so, what's got to be guarded against is the idea that they will plant the bad land, and some of this bad land will be bogland, and far from sequestering carbon into the forestry, you will actually destroy the peatland. The trees won't grow very well, as we've seen. They blow down with any amount of wind, and basically you destroy a carbon sink. So we've got to be very, very, very careful of that happening. Another thing is, and I do agree with the idea of using wetlands and peatlands, the idea of making compulsory, experience tells me that would not be a good idea. That doesn't mean I'm not behind it, and I'm 100% behind it. But if we say to people that these lands are invaluable, and they're invaluable carbon sinks, in the same way as people in Dublin who might live on land that's worth €500,000 or €1 million a hectare, they're told, well, it's invaluable or very valuable. The people who own that bogland and those peatlands, and who in many cases heat their houses from it, wrong or right, whatever your opinion on it, they do have a value on it. The problem is, history and the past has told us that that value is not passed on to the owner, and you meet inevitable resistance. And you also create more flight from those areas because it makes it more difficult to live in those areas. And only yesterday we seen an example of how you can go about this in a bad way. And don't get me wrong, I am in favour of this, but you've got to bring people with you. And in an attempt, under the Habitats Directive, all right, but also driven by trying to prevent climate change, we had a situation in Ireland yesterday where a turf cutter, a domestic turf cutter, not a multinational, was dragged through the courts and is now facing, in fact, has been levied with a €500,000 fine and potentially 3 years in prison. Now, some people might jump up and down and say, yes, that'll stop him doing it. It won't. It will turn everyone against what we're trying to do here. It will give environmentalism a dirty name. It will turn people off it forever. So if we're going to do this, you've got to bring people with you. You don't come down and ram it down their throats and say you'll spend 3 years in a cell if you don't do it. You bring them along. You convince them. And actually, that's what I've been doing and other people in my country have been trying to do. And the very bogs they're trying to preserve will in the end be preserved because the people around them are going to make it happen. Not because we give 3 years in prison and €500,000 in fine and now have an ordinary farmer and a turf cutter at home terrified about what's going to happen with them in the future. This will not help environmentalism. It will turn them off. It will turn the elderly in my country off, who were environmentalists before any of you knew how to spell the word and before you knew what it meant. They recycled before we invented the word. We've got to bring these people along, and to do that we need to really consult and we need to learn from the mistakes of the past, and we've got to stop doing what we're doing in Ireland at the moment. Thank you.